Hello and welcome to another devlog for Let There Be Light. I don't really have a plan for the entire week for this video, but I want to start, and I already have gotten a small start on changing the sound effects that we made in the last video. I just am not super happy with how they turned out. I kind of just went in and made them without really thinking about what I wanted them to sound like. Again, it was my first time making sound effects, so I guess it makes sense that it was pretty experimental. I've already made some very good improvements to the hit sound effects. I decided I wanted something deeper and more impactful. So I recorded myself slapping my desk and lowered the pitch and gave it some reverb, and it sounded really cool. In fact, it was almost a little bit too epic. While Hollow Knight has some very deep sound effects that really make it feel like your attack has some force behind it, the combat in my game is a lot spammier than Hollow Knight's is. So if you're attacking a group of enemies, you'd be hearing that sound all of the time. So I don't want it to be quite so... I don't think I want there to be quite so much emphasis on the hit itself. So I instead took that sound and I'm saving it for the player death. I think that is a much better sound for when the player dies. And instead I recorded myself just hitting my chest. It's a little bit of a lighter thud, and I think that will be a much better fit for my game. As for the sword swinging sound effects, I did already try lowering the volume, and that helped. But I was talking to one of my friends about it, and he made a good point. It's not that the sound effect I have now is bad, but like the hit sound effect, it's gonna be spammed. It's gonna be played even more often than the hit sound effect will be played. So it just needs to be a little bit less intense. And I think if I greatly lower the intensity of the sword swinging sound effects and then slightly raise the intensity of the damaging sound effects, that's gonna balance out pretty nicely, I hope. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to work on after I fix these sound effects though, so I will be thinking about that throughout my week. But for tonight, I'm just going to focus on the sound effects, so I'll update you when I have something else. So some massive improvements have been made to my sound effects. I'll play the old ones for reference now. And here are the improvements. So those all sound a lot better in my opinion, especially the sword swinging sound effects. They're way quieter and way less annoying, and the damaging sound effects are way deeper and sound way more satisfying. They fit in a little bit better with the hit stop too. The hit stop and this sound effect combined really make it feel like you have a little bit more weight behind your attacks, which is great. You may have noticed a few new sound effects in there. I went ahead and added some footsteps, as well as some wing flaps for when you jump. A landing sound effect, which is just two of the footsteps played a couple milliseconds apart. There's also a new sound effect for when I take damage. I don't know if I'm going to keep that. I was kind of planning on that being a critical hit sound effect, but I threw it on as player damage for now because critical hits aren't a thing yet. And the last one is the death sound effect. like that one a lot. It's very deep and very drawn out. It seems a little weird right now because there's no death animation, but when I get an animation and a death screen in there, the length of that sound effect will make a little bit more sense. But yeah, all of these sound effects together has really helped to bring a lot of life to the game, which is exactly what I was going for. Because before this, the game has felt pretty dead and pretty lifeless. And on top of that, my attacks feel way better, which I guess is kind of what kickstarted the whole start to adding sound effects into the game in the first place. And sticking with the theme of combat, the one thing that's really holding my combat back right now is the fact that when I take damage, I can't run through these guys. So the only way to get away from them is to jump up and above them, but if they damage you, you lose control of the character and you fall down. And that is really frustrating and really does not feel good. Unfortunately, because of the way these guys are set up, it's not going to be an easy thing to fix, but fixing that is definitely the next step if I really want my combat to feel better. But with that said, that's going to wrap up this week's devlog, so thanks for joining me. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.